Hello and welcome to yet another video. This is the first episode of the story in which Naruto is civilian due to unforeseen circumstances. Naruto's life is derailed from his intended career. This story is from Ideas Maker, so please support him. Please like and subscribe to show your support. Let's get the show started. Somewhere in the middle of the night, Naruto was pulled away from his bed in Hull before the council in session. The Hokage wanted to help him, but the crime in question was simply just too severe that he couldn't take it lightly. According to the witnesses, several civilians saw him exiting from the Uchiha's place before returning to his own home. They claimed the boy was up to no good, thus as good citizens they followed him. Unfortunately, when they have gotten a better look, they were horrified to see he's covered in blood. So after reporting to some chunins, they searched his house and found his bloody jumpsuit along with his bloodied shoes. At least that was the evidence they brought to light when the trial got started. Sadly, from Naruto's testament, he said he knew none of the said evidences. He claimed he had only went to the ramen stand then back to his house before being dragged to this meeting. Obviously, his testament was not very convincing. Especially when it was paired against the so-called evidence. It seems someone after the massacre, a group got together and started a conspiracy act against the boy. They managed to procure his old and unwashed clothes, dropping them in pools of blood before hiding them in his room. The same with his shoes, as they create footsteps of a child exiting from the dead clan. Since most of the ninjas were busy looking for the killer and securing the village, Noon witnessed their strange actions. The civilian council too acted as they plant false witnesses for their grand scheme in order to get rid of the demon. The Hokage knew they had been trying to get rid of Naruto for a while but didn't know they would take opportunities in times of village crisis. He had truly underestimated them, thus how Naruto is ended up paying for the price. Sadly, their so-called evidence were airtight thanks to all the chaos generated by the massacre. Hokage-sama, with all due respect. You are obviously clouded by your personal feelings for the boy to not see the evidences presented before you. With that one line, the counselor gained some of the Hokage's supporters. While not voicing out loud, they too starts to see their leader acting in the interest for the boy. It was clear that the Hokage had a soft spot for him, but with the accusation rising against the kid, they needed a leader with more objective thinking. The counselor knew he's getting an upper hand because the whole knew their leader gave the boy a lot of leeway. He was even allowed to call him with disrespectable names. Bringing the matter back, the counselor pushes forth with his attack. We had several key witnesses seeing him exiting from the crime scene. The Hokage knew he had to respond quickly and with a more neutral reaction if he wants to convince others of his leadership ability. Counselor, that's quite a wide accusation. Do you think those witnesses are willing to subject themselves to a mind walk by an Yamanaka? Perhaps, Hokage-sama. They couldn't outright reject the mind walk because it would made it seem like they were guilty themselves. Despite that, the civilian council had everything planned. Since they had mind-walking clan, it's not unreasonable to assume an Yamanaka would be asked to verify their claim. However, the tricky part is to get the right Yamanaka to do the mind walk. They may not be able to get to the head Yamanaka, Inoichi Yamanaka, but if they can sway the next best, it would be enough. Thanks to the village's unfair prejudice against one boy, it wasn't difficult to find one willing to submit to their clause. They knew if they ended up with a mind walk, the likely candidate would be Inoichi. Hence, all they need is to ensure another Yamanaka takes his place. As long as the Yamanaka in question is one of Inoichi's trusted clan member, it wouldn't be difficult to switch them. Then again, it turns out it wasn't needed as the counselor pressed on. However, considering the bloodied clothes found by your shinobi, I don't think it would be necessary. Hokage-sama, even after this, can you still say the child being innocent? It was a two-point attack, one with hard evidence and the other targeting the leader's obvious deliberate attempt to protect the child. Counselor, would watch your tone and accusation. Even the benevolent leader couldn't help but get a little angry. In Konoha, everyone is innocent until they are proven guilty. This is especially the case when that someone accused is anything but a child. Unfortunately, his word of wisdom fell on deaf ears as the civilian side of the council rolled their eyes. They had long learned to hide those little disrespectful actions in council meetings. It's their little rebellion as they test the boundaries to how much and far they can get away with their actions. Anyway, as the council turns to the evidence, they all recognized the boy's clothes. Only he wears the color of orange, hence it's no mistake they were his clothes. If that's not bad enough, they were still covered with their village founder's blood, thus making his case more tricky than it already is. Even without voting, the council in session could sense where the verdict is shifting. Combined with several key witnesses' testament, things aren't looking good for our Jinchuriki. I did, counselor, I saw the boy leaving the Uchiha district. I can recognize his bright orange jumpsuit anywhere. The counselor didn't need to verify the bloodied clothes as evidence. Similarly, other witnesses says same things, all incriminating the boy. At first, I didn't who it was. He looked fishy, so I came closer for a look. Then, I knew who it was. Only he wears that stupid color. I was going to teach him a lesson until I saw the bloody clothes, so I called the umbu. The Hokage tries to pick out the inconsistencies, but they were all solid. Hokage-sama, I would recognize the boy anywhere. Aside from his ridiculous color, he's the only one in the village with whiskers. Again, the leader tries to point out it could be other shinobi henging. Hokage-sama, why would anyone henge into the boy? The Hokage wanted to say his own shinobis, but he had to remind it himself for not throwing wild accusation. So until he had proof, there's very little he can do. He had vowed to form an investigation team after delaying the sentence, but things aren't going his way. The Hokage may know the truth that it's Itachi's secret mission, but it wouldn't prove Naruto's innocence because they could have done it simultaneously. Sasuke was no help neither since he's in a coma. Unfortunately, some of the shinobi clans too starts to suspect Naruto. Thankfully, some of the more open-minded raised a valid point. Counselor, how do you explain a child kill the so-called elites of Konoha? For once, Shikaku Nara wasn't asleep as he brought up one major contradiction. Unfortunately, the counselor was confident. Excellent question, Naradono. As much as I hate to admit, the boy was an abnormality. I am sure the council is familiar how he had an uncanny ability to outrun ninjas. Even his pranks were something no normal could ever thought of, thus catching chunins and jonins alike. Lastly and most important of all, we all know what's reside within him. The counselor wanted to call him a demon but used the term the Hokage used. Despite Shikaku raising a reasonable point, the doubt was quickly clenched by the counselor's casual explanation. He didn't need to say the Kyubi as the whole council knew what he's referring to. While common sense dictates that the demon's chakra was never used, the shinobis were afraid. Hence, in this scenario they would rather Kyubi not being among them than the possibility it would one day go berserk. The damage was already done as even shinobi clans starts to nod to the counselor's words. He was also right in his pranks as he does have quite a knack in trap making. Sadly they were just too creative and ingenious, thus catching even some of the umbu off guard. Unfortunately, those facts, while useful as ninja candidate, it doesn't help his case. In fact they were counterproductive as the counselor points out how a more lethal version could be used to kill even the elites of the village. It was for this reason more clan members starting to favor the counselor. With so many hard evidence against one boy, the Sandame's in a difficult situation. If that's not bad enough, news of Naruto's involvement in the Uchiha's massacre was somehow leaked. As the rumor spread across the village, protesters had gathered outside. It was obvious what they want as they all were calling for the demon's death. Even if by some miracle they somehow managed to win the case, the village is now too dangerous for him. As far as the civilians concerned, Naruto is the only one responsible for the massacre. Even the real culprit is caught, in their minds they already concluded that the demon is in fact the mastermind. Hence, it's quite impossible to reason with them. Despite his shame and anger, the Hokage managed to take public execution off the table. However, life imprisonment sentence isn't anywhere better. It took a while to convince them, as the council all demanded for true justice, as did the public outside. The people were now more angry than it was just the Kyubi incident. Years in waiting and watching, he finally showed them his demon side. Sadly, it was already too late, as the demon took away their greatest clan's lives. They didn't want just his blood but also the years of torment they had to endure from his presence. For this reason, the Sandaime had no choice but to quickly send him away. It may be a prison, but it will safer than Konoha. As for the civilian council, their only consolation was they were finally able to get rid the demon boy. Whether Naruto's guilty or not, it didn't matter, as the people were too irrational to care. The death of a whole clan but one is just too much for them, especially where it involves the founders of their village. Once they hear the rumor that the demon child may or may not be involved, it triggered an instant chain reaction, as everyone vote for his death. They tolerate him all these years because he had yet to show his colors. Now that the village's greatest clan was dead because of him, his life is as good as forfeit. Imprisonment. When Naruto first heard he's going to prison, he's deathly afraid because he will be surrounded by criminals and killers. However, the Hokage reassure him, letting him know it's only temporary. He claims that the village is just too dangerous for him now, hence he's better off inside the prison. It may be a place full of criminals, but he will at least be watched by the guards. The Hokage says they were no different than the Umbus in Konoha. Despite his young age, Naruto's not ignorant. He knew people in the village dislike him, he just didn't know why. Then again, the protesters outside weren't making it very subtle, as they scream loudly for his head and death. He thought he had seen them at their worst, but he was wrong, as the people were totally furious. Through the windows he can see the Umbus holding back the horde, as look like they want to take a bite out of him. Luckily none look up to see him, otherwise not even Guy could hold them back from tearing through the Kage building. Seeing this, the Sandaime urged his Umbus to hurry. So under their full protection, the young Jinchuriki was escorted away silently and safely out of Konoha. They had to take the rooftops, thus avoiding the masses of the crowd. Even then they couldn't have done it without the Hokage, as he misdirect them by drawing their attention to their verdict. Naruto could hear the roar, obviously from the reaction. It was difficult to deduce whether it was disapproval or an actual cheer, because he was already at the gate. The Hokage did promise him once he fixes things, he could return. Sadly to both parties, his return wouldn't be happening anytime, as evidence of his innocence will be long gone. Unfortunately, since he's convicted as a criminal, he will be serving his crime. On top of that, the nature of his crime is against the royal founder of the village and strongest clan. He will be there for a very long time, and most likely for the rest of his life. The Sandaime can investigate as much as he can, but with full hate of the population bearing down on the poor boy, there's very little he could do to prove his innocence. Every evidence will either be inconclusive or insufficient, as the village as a whole work together in the background to make sure the demon boy can never set foot back in their village ever again. After a while, the Hokage will eventually realize just how futile it will be. It will be like working on an uphill battle and against all the people he swore to protect. Either way, it will be tough and next to impossible to win situation. As for Naruto, he was hauled out of Konoha in chains quickly and silently, away from any of the angry villagers. There's a carriage waiting for them, as the Umbus escort him all the way along with the necessary documents. They had to take to the roofs to avoid the villagers, as everyone was desperate to give the boy his last send-off. Luckily Noon saw them and the short trip was off to a quiet start. His guards sympathize his feelings. It's bad enough he's convicted as a criminal. The most they could do is to prevent the whole village from making it worse than it already is. On their way, Naruto said nothing and his guards were glad to leave him in peace. Those waiting inside the carriage had been expecting a missing Nin, but certainly not a 6-year-old child. However, the furious reaction from the population shocked them as they hurriedly fled from Konoha. They can still hear the shouts. Had it not been the Umbus hurrying them along, they would still be stunned. Deep down they knew whatever crime the kid had done no way deserved a maximum prison sentence. Once they reached the fire prison, the Umbus has to leave. There's little to be said, as there's nothing they could say to make things better. Then again, they doubt the kid had yet to see the reality of his situation. The most they could do was to give him a light squeeze on the shoulder before leaving. Like all those coming into the prison, Naruto was brought directly to the warden so the man can have a few words with him. Aside from getting to see the face of the criminal, the warden likes to know whom he will be housing. He says it helps him decide what to do with the prisoner and to remind them why it's bad idea to misbehave. However, when the young man was brought before him, he couldn't believe his own eyes, yet the child's report is right in front of him. It's telling him he's exactly whom he is dealing with. Naruto Uzumaki, 6 years of age. He thought it was a misprint, but apparently he was wrong. Then there's his malnourished state as the kid is still in chains. How did they find handcuffs his size? At least it explains why he's so short, as he watch him having trouble getting on an adult's chair. Get the cuffs off him, orders the warden. The guards quickly complied. They didn't like the scene any better. They helped him sit in the oversized chair that's usually reserved for criminals. No matter how they see it, the child looked as innocent as any other child. Sadly, as orders dictates, the child will be put in his prison, thus among other convicts. As he reads the report in detail, it says the boy is a demon. It made his eye twitch over his already skeptical expression. He wondered exactly what they thought he or his prison could do against a real demon. Perhaps it's just a nickname like one of the swordsmen of the mist, Zabuza Momochi. Ninjas and their silly names, naming themselves after gods or demons. Then again, real demons, bijus, are special cases handled by ninja villages. Yet, would they send one to his prison? Nevertheless, before he met the boy, the warden did take precautions by having extra guards. Ordering special overtime if he has to. The report also says the criminal was convicted by his involvement in mass killing. If the information about his demon status wasn't far-fetched enough, the warden thought he's getting some Kage-level ninja into his prison. Hence, you can forgive his surprise when a kid no more than 6 years of age showed up. It took some convincing down the channels, Konoha ninja to prison guards, then guards to the warden. They were nevertheless ended up taking the kid. The paperworks are all there, and despite how many they check, the kid's photo and information were accurate. Are you kidding me? What kind of sicko are you people? The Konoha ninjas remain stoic. This came directly from the Hokage and the council. There's no way we can take him, the prison isn't built for someone like him. Look, here is the paperwork. There's no mistake. The guards had to double, no, triple check that there's no mistake, but sadly everything's there. Of course, similar scene happened with the warden. Like the guards, the paperwork is all there and the kid is now part of their responsibility. It had seals from every clan and civilian in the council, including the Hokage. Despite having to do their job, it was nevertheless a painful sight to him trying to get on an adult's chair that's normally reserved for hardcore prisoners. The warden was skeptical when he first read his file. As mentioned, it says he's a demon, thus made him wonder why one would send one to his prison. Then again, the warden had seen stranger things, hence why he had his security on full alert regardless what it meant. If that's not strange enough, it also says that the kid was responsible for the Uchiha massacre. No matter how he looked at the young man, the warden could not see the murdering psychopath in him. He had been the prison's warden for over 20 years, he had seen liars, killers, murders, including those seriously insane, but Naruto is anything but any of them. Sadly, he's just a warden and his responsibility is his prison as well as the prisoners within his facility. Since he had little influence to Konoha's council, there's no much he can do about it. Especially one that's signed unanimously by the whole council including the Hokage. Not to forget the fact that each and every one of them had much higher political standing than he does. Hence, questioning their decision wouldn't be wise, let alone the council as a whole. He could go to the fire daimyo, then again what grounds does he have to challenge a ninja village's verdict? Sympathy? He has over 1,000 of prisoners, and some he too considered were innocent. Hence in the end there's very little he could do but his job. His guards help lifting and gently place the boy in his seat, he's obviously too short for an adult's chair. Keeping his emotions in check, he put on his warden image. Uzumaki Naruto, it says in here you were convicted for your involvement in the Uchiha massacre. Can you tell me your side in this? If he's expecting an explanation, he's sadly mistaken as Naruto wouldn't even look him in the eye. In fact he has been like that since leaving his home as the guards helpfully brought it up. Sighing in defeat, there's never preceding of his situation as he's totally lost in what he should do. By law he should process the kid like any of his criminals but deep down he knew the child is innocent just as any normal child. He knew there's always corruption but for a powerful village such as Konoha and the entire council to condemn one child is simply unthinkable. Had the kid been a deranged serial killer he could understand but both his instincts and guts told him otherwise. Just what had happened to Konoha's justice system, the once so-called strongest but noble and peacekeeping village. Then again adding the kid to his prison is the least of his problem as there may be a riot not just in his own men but maybe the prisoners too. His guards may throw up by the injustice of the system thus not listening to his orders. Whereas his prisoners, they would be equally furious. Among some of them there are some that were wrongfully convicted, but to see one so young among them would outright disgust anyone. Life in penitentiary. True enough, as Naruto was escorted to his cell, there were prisoners shaking their heads at the injustice of convicting a child. Some of the more vocal ones were furious as they start throwing things at the guards. Unfortunately this act only scares the young man as he tries to look as small as possible. He's used to be hated within Konoha, hence his misinterpretation. Unknown to him, for once their anger wasn't directed at him. Then again he wouldn't had known as he did recognize a few that came from Konoha and they were especially vocal about it. He had heard of the word demon so many times, he can filter them among the other rackets and screams. Every time the word were heard, he couldn't help but cringe as he recalled the events that comes after. Those fools thought fate had finally gifted them an opportunity, hence why they couldn't help but to smirk viciously. All this time they still blame him for their misfortune, thus why they were jeering at him loudly. Ha, 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 ha. The demons finally ended up where he should be. Of course, these idiots didn't think they are also in the same boat. Watch yourself, demon. We will be coming for you. The Hokage can't protect you anymore. There's nowhere to run or hide. Just you wait, you demon, you will see us very soon. Ha, ha, ha. Apparently there's quite a few of them as they all want a piece of him. This of course was not missed by the guards and the warden. Thanks to the special circumstance, the warden came personally to see which of his prisoners could be troubled by their new inmate. He should have expected it as it's those from Konoha that react most violent and vocal. Like the document referenced, they too refer him as the demon. The guards hurried him along in hope he wouldn't hear any more, but the voice continues to echo around the prison, thus making it even more eerie than it already is. Unlike the other prisoners' angry shouts, those threats are not empty and they are more of a promise. The two guards escorting him looked to one another as they silently vowed to keep a better eye on him. Their only regret was they couldn't take away his fear. As much as they wished to watch over him, they couldn't be there with him all the time. Then again, the prison isn't small either as they couldn't follow him wherever he goes. Not to mention there being number of blind spots, thus how sometimes even the guards wouldn't know about them. However, before they leave they gave him a little advice. Hey kid, we will do our best to watch over you. Just stay in the guard's line of sight as much as you can, okay? He reassured him by giving him with a light squeeze over his shoulder. It helped a little as Naruto knew he can at least count on the guards. They are like some of his Umbu guards in Konoha. Unfortunately, like his home village, he knew they can't do everything as they can't watch him 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. The other times he will have to make do with any place he could squeeze himself into. True to guard's promise, the warden kept a full security alert for next couple of weeks as precaution. Extra guards were posted everywhere in case of an uprising and a few extras to watch over the boy. Despite that, it didn't stop those from Konoha from trying something on his first day. They thought they could still boss the kid around like they did in Konoha without consequences. Obviously they were shown the error of their ways. One of them managed to get behind him during lunchtime and kicked him. It resulted in our Naruto sprawling all over the kitchen along with his tray full of food. Besides wanting to get the kid in trouble, he couldn't handle the demon getting extra helpings. He thinks demons like him doesn't deserve anything humans work themselves to create. He smirked because he expected the demon to be lucky to avoid punishment, let alone another meal. Normally, had this happened to any prisoners, the others would have just laughed. However, since the victim was only a child, only disgust were shown on their faces. Then again, his actions only brought the guards over. One look at the scene, they immediately knew whom was the culprit. What happened here? Obviously it was directed at him. The stupid kid was clumsy, he tripped on his own feet, he glared menacingly at the blonde, daring him to say otherwise. No need to ask the kid, we have seen the whole thing. We were only giving you a chance to explain yourself. The prisoner could only stare back speechless, but the guard was not finished. Since you like wasting food so much, then obviously you don't need to eat. Go grab a mop and clean up the mess you made. If he though it's the demon that should be punished, he was mistaken. So grumbly he made his way for the cleaning equipment, knowing he will go hungry for the day. He made sure the demon suffer as well as he knee him in the head just as he passes by. To say the guard was furious would be an understatement. As a result, the man was rewarded extra baton strikes and bruises for his efforts. For once, the other prisoners were on the guard's side as none object to the vicious punishment. Obviously the guards needs to be more vigilant if they seriously wants to watch over the boy. They will soon find out just how far these fools would go to hurt him. On the other hand, unknown to those from Konoha, their actions will only alien themselves from the rest of prisoners. Had they been on right mindset, they would have seen it, but thanks to their own arrogance they expected everyone to agree with them. It's just so unfortunately they were no longer in Konoha, and people here have better common sense than those back home. Over the week, the guards caught their every attempt as they try every means to make the child miserable. A few were locked in solitary for it, yet even when they come out they continue to blame the kid for their own actions. The guards that released them heard their almost silent promises, just you wait, G demon. They can only shake their heads in disgust and report what they've heard to the others and the warden. After a few days of peace, the warden and the guard thought everything had died down. That is until a fire broke out as one of the cells caught fire. Obviously this was a planned strategy by those from Konoha as they took that opportunity to secure their objective. They drag him to the laundry room where it's usually empty unless it's laundry day. That's where they proceed to give the demon the beating he's rightfully deserved, including the overdue ones. However, unknown to them, they weren't the only ones know about the laundry room. Hence, despite their success in evading the prison guards, they had not taken their fellow prisoners into account. In fact, the third party had been there for a while. The Konoha group only realized they weren't alone after a couple of shots at their target. In every prison there's always a leader or fractions among the prisoners. Fire prison is no different, but one man managed to rein in everyone under his rule. Hence, instead multiple fractions, there's only one ruler where he's the king. If there's a game, gambling, going on, he would be the first to know, if there's an escape plan of course he would know. Since he literally took over as leader he made it his business to know his surroundings. Hence, besides his true name Ryoma, some knew him as the Mob King. So when the Konoha group made their plan, it was obviously known to him. It's not hard to deduce they would come to the laundry room, thus how he and his men were already in place. True to his source, he and his men didn't have to wait long. Those from Leaf hadn't bothered to check their surroundings, thus missed the extra bodies in the dim-lit environment. They were too busy enjoying their well-deserved payback to care. After a moment, Ryoma decides he's seen enough, thus intervened. Now. Just what has the blonde little squirt done that 15 grown men would gang up on him? By his tone the mob boss is a little ticked and disgusted by the sight. Ryo. Ryoma-sama? Why are you here? They didn't know why the man would be here for their business, let alone his men appearing from the shadows and surrounding them. Seeing the glares they are getting, the group quickly became very unnerved as they tries to explain themselves. Ryoma-sama, you may not know this, but this thing here is actually a demon. He's somehow managed to brainwash our Hokage and got us sent here in the first place. We were just about to do everyone a favor by killing the little demon. Unknown to the group, most of the gang went through similar treatments in their youth. Abomination, worthless, street rat, good for nothing, wasty of space, were few of the colorful and taboo words used. The name-calling weren't important, it's the tone and the way they said them that triggered some unpleasant memories. Noon acted yet was out of respect to their leader as the man is currently speaking to them. I see, you boys may not know it, as he points his finger around him. My boys and myself had been called many names, trash, worthless, street rat, good for nothing, etc. Demon, however, is new, amuses the man dangerously. Ryoma-sama, you don't understand, he's really a demon. He may look like a kid, but don't let his appearance fool you. Really? I have been watching you beat up the kid for 5 minutes. Where is this demon? Not once had he raised his hands to fight back. Had he been a true demon, why hadn't he killed all of you? The group knew things are getting serious, as they should had realized not everyone share their belief. Sweat slowly flowed down their foreheads as they found themselves unable to respond. Ryoma-sama, that thing is just biding its time. He knew he's grasping straws but still tries convince the mobster. Our beloved Hokage sealed away its power, thus turning it into a kid. Are you calling me a fool? I have seen murderers, I have faced insane assassins the ninja villages sent after me. He's had enough, thus with a snap of his fingers. The others already knew what to do, in fact they had been itching for a while to beat the living crap out of them. The reason they hadn't started already is because of their boss. Thus they held back their urges. Hence, when they heard the signal, they start beating those from Konoha senseless. Prisoner or not, none of them saw beating up a small child a sign of justice. They may be criminals, but at least they have standards. After a while the group was a little surprised that Noon came to stop them. Usually there would be riot guards flooding into the room, punishing those involved. Unknown to them, the guards choose to ignore their activities. They had responded to the emergency only to find it's actually a diversion. There's little doubt it was done by the Konoha group, as they all had a sinking and sickening feeling of the situation. The calm before the storm is fairly accurate as the guards consider how they suddenly stopped all their attempts. It was a mistake to think they would simply give up. Thinking the worst for the child, the warden ordered a prison-wide search. Find the kid. Find those Leaf prisoners. It's no doubt for them finding one will lead them to the other. These Konoha prisoners were infamous, as every guard were given special instruction to keep an eye out on them. Unfortunately, they had spent too much time to contain the emergency, thus all of them were feeling equally guilty. They cursed themselves for falling for such stupid trick and letting the kid down. All this time they fought hard against the outbreak. The kid was suffering in his abuser's hands. Having seen how these monsters would abuse him, Noon dared to voice what would happen to the poor kid. When they finally found him, they were relieved it was already taken care of. Clearly the kid has been rescued by his fellow inmates. Aside from letting justice serve itself, they were curious about the situation. As much as they hate to admit it, they knew they had failed him. They had tried punishing the Konoha group, yet they only felt content after succeeding in making the kid suffer. These people were like drug addicts, and abusing the boy is like a ritual. The warden felt the same, thus why he had his men on standby. Aside from letting the scene play itself out, he wanted to see how the boy respond to these inmates. Ryoma is maybe a criminal, but the man had honor, thus why he waited to see how the two feels about each other. Inside the prison, the boy is better off having fellow prisoners to watch over him than his people. As the week had demonstrated, there's only so much they could do. Normally Ryoma's behavior would send him to the solitary room, but today he's actually defending a child, hence the warden let the incident slide. For the sake of the kid, he needs all the friends he can, even if it's among killers and murderers. In fact, the warden had hoped the man would look out for the kid in there. At least to help him open up a little. True enough, Ryoma's men brought the kid to him. "Hey kid, what's your name?" Naruto would normally clamped up, but he quietly said his name, Naruto Uzumaki. One look on him, Ryoma knew the kid's an orphan. "Listen kid, if anyone in this prison gives you a hard time, you tell me, okay? I have never had a son before, but from today on you can be my godson and these will be your brothers. It may not be much, but we prisoners tend to stick together, like a big family." By then the blonde was brought to tears as he hugs his godfather like he did with his old man Hokage. Since he came into the prison, Ryoma's men had watched him for the entire week. The reason none of them did anything is because they didn't know how to approach him. "Hey, brat. What the F*** you doin', doesn't sound right." They lived in criminal world so long they forgot how to interact with normal children. Especially their looks, they may be good for intimidating others, hence it's not facing innocent children. Their smiles only made them look cruel or menacing. To try and put on an innocent face would probably cramp their face muscles. They could easily do a 1,000-yard stare and talk with their fists, but trying to talk to a child would probably give the poor child nightmares. Then again, Naruto did avoid everyone when he came in, so they kept their distance. The group would have acted when he got abused, but seeing the guards taking matters into their hands, they left things as they were. That's until today, as they found out the plan. In the end, as leader of those inmates, Ryoma was taken to see the warden. He patted Naruto in the head, letting him know he will be alright. "It's alright, the warden and I go way back. You stay with your new brothers, okay?" The guards let them finish before escorting him out. Obviously this was watched by the warden, as Ryoma was later brought to him. "You know Ryoma, what you have done would normally get you a few weeks in the solitary room. Cut the crap, since your men didn't even step in, you weren't much of an innocent. Just tell me what's the story with the kid. Who in the right mind send a 6-year-old to prison, let alone the fire prison? Actually, the kid's from Konoha and his sentence was signed by the highest authority, including the Hokage. File says the kid somehow got himself involved in the Uchiha massacre." "The Uchiha? Can you belly?" "I know," interrupts the warden. He too felt the same way as he sighed deeply. Despite one being the warden, the other prisoner, the two have an understanding with one another. As long as the prisoners follows the rules, the warden would cut them some slack. Luckily for the warden, Ryoma reigned in most of his prisoners, thus making his job much easier. "I hear you nominated yourself as the kid's godfather. I didn't know you are the fathering type." It was more of a conversation starter, bringing the two into a safer topic of discussion. "Yeah, well, the kid seemed to need it at the time. Ryoma may act tough, but the warden knew he meant well, as he did have the loyalty of his men. Don't worry, I have seen what it meant for the kid. Just watch over him. As long as you and your men don't go too over your head, you can ask for anything." When I first saw the kid and read his medical reports, he got a lot less than scants than prisoners and not eat 10 for days. Clear disgust was shown on the mobster face. Well, lucky for you guys, we decide to change the prisoner's menu a little for this reason. Just make sure you and your men don't start complaining about not eating your veggies. Also off the record, try ask what the little guy likes to eat and we will arrange it from time to time. Obviously, they start having ramen from time to time and most of the prisoners knew whom they should thank for this change. Since then, Naruto's life got a lot better as the Konoha group steer well away from him. They may look disgusted by Ryoma's men smothering the demon boy, teaching him things he shouldn't be learning. Too bad for them. Naruto is watched 24 hours a day, if not by Ryoma's group it's the prison guards. Unlike Konoha, in here it's them that's being singled out. Thanks to that incident, they were now known as child abusers. It's a shame that inside the prison that there are more than a half of the prisoners came from abused families. Most people may not be aware, most criminals only turn to crime because they don't have a stable home they could feel safe in. It's just unfortunate for the Konoha group, as the abusers now became the abused. If they so much as send a glare in the kid's way, they would get another beating their way. The guards were no help as they only came to their aid to take them to the infirmary. Even they weren't very nice about it after knowing who they are. This brought back memories as the same event is now reversely put on them. Back in Konoha some of them had paid shinobis to look the other way so they can teach the demon a lesson. However, in here the prison guards don't need to get paid. Most of them had children of their own, hence it's no surprise they see their own children in our young hero. For this reason, the Konoha group receive rough treatments every now and then. They can scream for unfairness or report for ill treatment, but they were all ignored or extreme cases silenced for their efforts. What had we done to you? Why do we get such treatment? You know what you did, child abusers had no rights, one of the guard responded steely. That demon? That's no child. You were being deceived, it's all a trick. Shut up before I make you. No, I will scream, I will protest until someone listen. Someone had to do some. He was silenced and rewarded at the same time with a stick to his gut. Listen well, we've had enough of you already. This is our prison, we make the rules. Another crap coming out of you, you will be talking to this. The guard show him his baton letting him know what he will be talking to. Having tasted the first blow, he knew the guards wasn't joking and willing to inflict forcefully pain if he has to. Seeing the inaction from the standby guards, he also realizes he's not getting any help from them. Especially when the said guards are also glaring at him. If he had to guess, they too were itching to use their baton on him. Even an idiot knew when is smart time to back down. As much as they loathe it, they still have a duty to at least take him to the infirmary. You better ing remember our discussion and keep your distance from the kid. On their faces, they show contempt and disgust. Unfortunately, the idiot hadn't learned his lesson as he proceeds to complain to the doctor. Doc, you see this? I want to report the guard for abuse. Surely you can get the warden to herd us out. Sadly, the medical practitioner continues his treatment professionally. Seeing this, the Konoha inmate knew what this meant. Not you too, can't you see the brat is dangerous? Finally, the head doctor decides to speak. I suggest you keep your fantasies to yourself. You will find that in here people had better common sense than to abuse helpless children. He's speechless, he couldn't believe what hearing. What's wrong with these people? In Konoha they had supporters despite the Hokage's opposition. However, in here they were the minority as they found everyone against everything they consider as normal. The kid is a demon, people should understand, right? This is like Konoha all over again, like the Hokage they blindly follow their stupid righteous delusions. Demon kinds should be treated the way they deserve or else they rise against the humans. This must be the demon's doing, he must had already got to them. Despite whatever conclusion he came to, he and those from Konoha will find there's very little they could do it. This time, it's not just the guards going out of their way to protect him, the inmates too kept a close eye on them. Unlike the Umbus in Konoha, these people were openly showing contempt and glaring at them, daring them to do something stupid. Of course, some were just that stupid thinking they were untouchable. They assume the guards will do their job. Unfortunately, they were used as examples, thus letting the rest understand they were being serious. The message was obviously clear, as these people were ruthless. They may not be ninjas, but they are effective as brawlers and know how to effect maximum pain to get the message across. As a result, those from Konoha sent to infirmary had dislocated body parts, black eyes and cut lips for their foolishness. Extreme cases had their hair ripped out. They claim they him by the hair while not letting go when the fist struck. So far nothing is broken, but if those Konoha group don't get the message, it will end very bad for them. They can scream and complain, but there will be no sympathy from neither the guards nor the medical community. Thanks to that, the Konoha people learned to stay well away from the kid. Demon or no demon, he's not worth giving their life over it. Especially with a horde of his minions protecting him. Perhaps they are truly in hell and this is the demon's domain. As for our little hero, with the Konoha element out of his hair, he became more lively as he interacts with the fellow inmates. Like Ryoma had promised, they were like a family he never had. Since they are no longer strangers with a mean face, Naruto gets to know them. Every day was like story day as he listened to some of their life stories. Sometimes they even teach him something new. Sadly, the inmate will soon find out how neglected he was. What's that you are doing, Naja-san? I am reading, squirt. I have a few others you can borrow if you want. Seeing a few others on the table, he opened one only to be puzzled. What? No pictures? Nah, kid. It's no manga. Can't you read them? Seeing the blonde looking embarrassed, they realized something was wrong. Usually, by his age he should at least know enough words. No one taught me, usually I just look at the pictures. Luckily, another inmate decides to cut into the awkwardness by salvaging the situation with an offer. Hey, kid, how about we teach you how to read? Don't worry about it, Nasaki over there didn't even know how to read even now. Fu *******, sigh. Oh, yeah. I had never seen you picking up a book, not even a magazine. Despite trying to hide their usual foul language, they found out it's impossible, hence from time to time they would go back to their old ways. Sadly, it wasn't just reading and writing the boy lacked. He didn't even know games children his age play. What the hell did those Konoha scum do, forbid their kids from going near him as well? Sadly, that's also the case as parents tell their children to stay away from him. Such close-minded people, seeing Naruto as normal as any other child, the inmates were again abhorred by the village's antics. At least in here with them, he's better treated than he's in his home village. Had the Konoha group heard those comments, they would have protested, claiming they were demon worshippers, which will lead to another beating. Lucky for them, these inmates didn't speak it out loud or had any Konoha idiots nearby. So day by day, they help fix what the village did to their little sunshine. Naruto is like a mascot. In their dull prison life, his innocence is a ray of sunshine as they were forced to be his mentors, thus setting an example. It's like someone suddenly becoming a father or having a nephew around. One day, a group is showing him a new trick how to pickpockets. It's the closest thing relating to ninjas as Naruto begged them to train him in something ninja. Since it's a civilian prison, there's no ninja here to train him. Not wanting to disappoint the kid, one's showing him a pickpocket skill. You see, you just have to dip your fingers in and fish. He smile as Naruto repeat the trick. Did you feel that? A little, just don't force it. Try it on the guard this time, he's an easy mark. Like any child that just learned a new trick, he went to test his new technique. He sneak in behind the board guard and successfully fish out his wallet without him noticing. Everyone cheers silently for him as they had a good laugh. However, to their surprise Naruto choose to return it. "Taka-san, you need to be more alert," he said it as he toss him his wallet. Taka turned to Souse catching the wallet then looking at the group. He knew immediately what happened. "Hey! Stop teaching the kid those things. Taka-san, please don't be mad. The brothers were just showing me how to be a ninja." Ninja or no ninja, the others knew the kid was never one of them, criminals. "Naruto, my boy. The guard was right, we really shouldn't be teaching you these things." Then Naruto looked down thinking they don't consider him one of them. "You should realize most of us are criminals, we steal and we take. That's why we are here. However, you are different. We want you to live the life we couldn't. Does that mean I am not family?" It saddened them, because they were all the kid had. "Don't worry kid, you are already and always family." Little by little, his brothers spend time with him. Some teach him useful things he never experienced in his home village. "Hey brother, what are you doing?" He watched with his curious eyes as two of his brother play a game of shogi. "It's a game called shogi, wanna learn?" Having spent time with the kid, most of them found out he's more neglected than your average orphan. The kid's not just malnourished, he's behind in a lot of common things he should have known. So some taught him how to read, others show him how to do other daily activities. In a way, they were more of a family to him than anyone he had in Konoha. While it's a prison, the inmates were a friend, family and teacher to him. Even the guards every once in a while brought him gifts and also his favorite ramen. On his birthday, they got him an Alley-Okaniate ramen as the prison chef learned and made him his favorite ramen recipe. As long as people can see past his demon Jinchuriki status, Naruto can easily get past their defense. Most of the inmates felt guilty seeing a child among them, hence they tries to act nice around him. It does not mean that it changes whom they are, as they have occasioned scuffles among themselves. One time there's an incident where one beats another bloody only to stop upon seeing the curious kid. "What are you doing brothers?" Naruto asks with a full face of innocence. The two locking each other in an arm hold suddenly relax their holds to turn to the kid. "Nothing kid, we were just engaging in a bit of manly interactions. It's something we adults do." "Hey, I am not a kid. Let me join in your activities." The two couldn't help but sweat drop. "Yeah, right. Sure, squirt," as one pat his hand over his messy blonde hair. The other inmate were expecting a fight between the two only to groan in disappointment, but they all got a few laughs out of the scene. There's only one that was not so happy, he was immediately backhanded to the ground for spitting against the kid. Everyone was a little merry by the scene with exception of the guy from Konoha. He didn't dare calling out the demon as the last time got him quite a beating from it. Being so disgusted by the people he spat on the ground, the demon child walked, but unfortunately others saw it, thus sending him to the floor. Since the kid's gone and the last fight stopped, they continue with the new entertainment. In a prison, there's only a limited things one can do. So for a child, it would be exceptionally boring since he's also the only child. Most of time Naruto would hang out with the fellow prisoners as they tell him why they were put here. It's one of the few pastimes they have as they tell each other their own story. Naruto's no different as he tell tales of his pranks in Konoha. Like putting pepper powers on ground so the Inuzuka's ninja dogs ended up with a sneezing fit. Then there's the Umbu's colorful wardrobe as he dye their uniform without them knowing. It's one of the reasons they like him, as everyone had a good laugh because of his tales. While prison life is no picnic, but our little hero gets to learn something new every day. Eventually he found himself in the prison's art room. Since art isn't popular among the prisoners, the room is almost void of people. Well, with the exception of one, that is, Naruto recognize him as Kirito-san. Kirito is a quiet individual as he spends most of his time keeping to himself. It's the reason how Naruto rarely see him or talk to him. So when he found him in the art room, curiosity got better of him. He's both curious in the room and what Kirito does. As he scans the fairly large room, he found various paintings littering all over. Considering how young he is, Naruto had never seen a paint before. Picture books and drawings he had seen, but never paintings. So as he go over every canvas he was amazed how they reassemble things and places he recognized. One is obviously the art room itself, another is the guard he knew in the West Hall. Then there's the cafeteria. To a child such as himself, it's fascinating. Near the end, he found himself watching the sole occupant himself. He understood the need for silence, thus how he's watching him sketch without making a sound. He's tempted to ask many questions but held them as he watched Kirito apply layers and layers of colors over it. Slowly and to his amazement, the canvas magically transforms into something he recognized. It's the prison yard. As for Kirito, he's aware of his one audience but chose to ignore him. At first he thought the kid would eventually leave. No matter how interesting it may seem, painting to most people is boring. It's the reason why he's often alone and he liked the peace. However, to his surprise not only did the child not leave, he stayed quiet and watched him work to the very end. Naruto, right? A little shocked that he knew his name, but he quickly nodded in response. So, what can I do for you? Kirito-san, did you do all this? Naruto is obviously in awe of all the arts around him. Of course, do you see anyone other than me here? Besides, there's not much to do around here. So that's when I paint. Paint? Obviously, it's the first time he heard that word. He heard of drawing and coloring, but painting is new. Yes, they are called paintings. Usually made on a canvas. Canvas, again another new word. Kirito had heard he was neglected but at the time he didn't think too much into it. Of course, he didn't think the kid would ever step foot into his art room neither. Yet, here he is and now he seemed to understand what they were talking about. He didn't mind showing the kid a few things so he patiently explain or rather introduce him to the world of art. By the end of the crash course, we can see our exuberant hero going about each painting. Kirito-san, these are amazing. I see the art room, that's the guard from West Hall, and that's the prison yard. He points at every painting, telling Kirito excitedly what he sees. Perhaps, his enthusiasm is rubbing on him as Kirito too found himself unconsciously smiling. Slowing the two hit it off. Hey, Naruto. How would you like learning how to paint? A little surprised, our hero didn't know how to respond. You get to paint whatever you want. Of course, if you don't want to, you are still welcome to visit anytime you want. Of course, Kirito-san. I mean yes, I want to learn. So since then, Naruto is found in the art room every day. However, instead of teaching him, Kirito had him start on sketching. Like a simple item like an apple, he had him draw it on paper. Naruto did his best as it wasn't difficult. It's a hands-on approach, which suits our hero perfectly as he's not one for academics. As he's done with the sketch, Kirito then show him how he could transform his drawing by applying shading. A strong contrast helped bring the object out as Kirito demonstrates on his own sketch. It's an amazing transformation which Naruto try. Not bad, keep trying with various objects until you are satisfied. Everyone has a different view, hence it's up to the artist and her style. Kirito didn't seem to mind teaching the basics as he too drawing simple things with his student. As days went by, Kirito couldn't help Naruto seem to have a knack in art. Very good, I can see that you are improving. Art is all about talent because noon can just study and one day become a famous artist. Even famous artists never got famous until after their death. However, unknown to Naruto, Kirito truly believed he had talent and an invaluable gift. Even he probably couldn't understand it, but there's something about his penmanship or the way he held the tools. Despite there being nothing special about his art, for some reason it stands out better than his own. Since he couldn't understand it, he didn't dwell on it. Alright, Naruto. Let's move on and work on the brush. Like how he did with sketching, Naruto once again learned through practice. Unfortunately, painting isn't as straightforward as drawing. It was a smearing effort, a dabble there then here, thus it's difficult to assemble something. The only thing he got right is the color. That's where Kirito comes in, as he show him painting isn't one-dimensional, it's not two but multiple. He demonstrated by overpainting his work. A smear here, a patch there, and slowly the image emerged. Even if you somehow mess up, you can still continue. Art is not absolute because there's no end or right way to do it. All there is what your heart sees. Sadly, it's not something that a young mind like Naruto can understand. No right way? So how do you know what's right? What the heart sees? Like that, he's trying to understand what every sentence meant. How does a heart see something? Doesn't Kirito-sensei mean I? With his mentor, there's always a deeper meaning. So instead of asking what it was, he tries to figure it out on his own. Despite that, painting still fascinates him. Kirito too can see that he's improving. This time however he noticed something else. It's something he should have seen from the beginning. Despite the glaring difference in experience and skill, his apprentice's art seemed to make you feel alive. It's difficult to explain because the art itself isn't physically moving. However, in every one of his work you can somehow sense his soul. It's the best explanation he could give coming from him. Depending on his emotion, you can sometimes tell how he felt when he's painting. When it was brought up, Naruto mistakenly thought his teacher being a psychic. Kirito had to correct him, explaining the difference between psychics and telepathy, but he answered his question that he's none of them. Then again he couldn't explain how he knew anyway because even he's surprised by the discovery. He doubt Naruto knew what he's doing and both the knowledge and skill came from him. So what set his and Naruto's work apart? One day he decides to find out by having him recreate his own existing work, sometimes called forging, but that's normally reserved for copying famous painters' paintings. Naruto didn't quite do what he asked. Forging means copying the original's work down to the finest detail. However, Kirito didn't stop him. Naruto. When I said forging I meant copying down to the very same brush stroke. However, every artist had their own style so it's okay. Besides, I think I like your version as it's better than mine. So, good job. Another reason Kirito didn't stop him was he feeling his apprentice's emotions slowly embedding itself into his work. Even he wasn't sure what this phenomenon is and he knew asking his apprentice is pointless. He doubt Naruto knew what he was unconsciously doing. It's like he's breathing life into his painting. The finished piece gave him a floating feeling, a sense of freedom and weightlessness. It was both puzzling and fascinating, both craftsmanship and knowledge came from him yet the result were astonishing. However, the difference between them would be the expression while they paint. Naruto's expression was easy as he can see his joy. He assumed he was thinking himself as the cloud, hence why he's getting such feeling through his work. There's simply no dull moment with his apprentice. The moment he first stepped into the art room, Kirito knew their life would change. He's sure that every prisoner, excluding the Konoha group, felt the same. Like them, they all think the boy is special in a way. Is it odd that they think that? The answer is probably no. For Kirito, Naruto is both a mystery and fascination. Aside from that, he's also painting partner and someone helping him advance in his skills. While Naruto isn't experienced like him but fresh mind and ideas are great for improvement. As for the other prisoners, he brings out their protective instincts. It's good feeling for doing something different and right for a change. Naruto is like their kid little brother, or to older individuals, a son they never had. He's special because he had an ability to bring out goodness in people. To the inmates, they may not be aware, but to those neutral like the warden and guards it's very apparent. Hence, why they too can see how special he is. These are all hardcore prisoners that do not go well under authority. Had it not been Ryoma, there would have been riots. Still, even Ryoma can only go so far. Naruto is different. He touched every inmate's heart by interacting with them. Sometimes sharing life stories and listening to theirs, thus winning them over. The boy wasn't asking for pity but won their respect. Instead of reining them in forcefully by power and threats, Naruto instead won them over with his charm and reasoning. Take his "becoming Hokage" speech. The inmate may not like it but couldn't help but respect his decision. They had tried to convince him otherwise, but his dedication and drive could not be derailed. Even Ryoma found himself backing into the corner when talking to his bull-headed godson. He's too innocent for his own good, thinking with determination and time he could eventually change the village's view. Yet at the same time they had to admire his conviction. Due to that attitude, they had strange feeling that he would succeed. Not just as a ninja but actually becoming the Hokage. Aside from Naruto's mysterious painting phenomenon, everything in the art room ran as normal as it can be. Kirito is still teaching his student, and his student being obvious from the effects of his own paintings. The only difference is Kirito looking forward to where Naruto's strange and unexplained talent will take him. Hence, why he's cramming as much knowledge and skills into him. While the teacher is enthusiastic in providing knowledge, the student was strangely reciprocating in kind. This was due to Kirito's teaching method, as it's direct and more of a hands-on approach, which happens to be his blonde student's preferred method. Had Kirito given him a book, it's likely he will never see him again. Naruto was a lonely child, hence when the attention is focused on him it's his natural instinct to respond positively. He may had attention from other fellow inmates, but he felt he doesn't deserve them simply because he hadn't earned them. As one headstrong orphan, our hero hate being pitied. It's the reason why he tries so hard. With Kirito, however, he finally felt he earned the praises he deserved. Hence, the more Kirito threw at him, the more he thrived. Besides, painting appears to be fun than it is when you have nothing better to do. Aside from the new hobby, our hyperactive hero gets to be creative. Instead of pranks, he can put his energies on his paintings. It's better feeling than causing havoc because he's producing something. Naruto didn't need anything else because for the moment all he needed is his teacher's attention and approval. Despite his unusual circumstance, he's slowly turning back to a normal kid with a normal family. Unlike adults that set on their ways, children are easier to adapt, hence Naruto's situation. He's maybe obvious to his own talents but he can sense his teacher's approval, thus it's enough for him. Of course, it wasn't just his teacher that noticed that strange phenomenon in his paintings. The warden too noticed because he is also an art lover. He's the one acting as bridge to the outside, auctioning the prison painter's work. Although Kirito is a mediocre artist but there are people recognizing his work, it's how he helped funding the art room and buying materials. That's how he discovered Naruto's talent. Like Kirito, he too was fascinated. Kirito, is this Naruto's? The two were discussing one of his earlier finished paintings. Yeah, it's extraordinary, no? If you stare long enough, it's like it's sucking your soul in. How did he do it? Inquires the warden, thinking he would know the answer. Don't know. I had been watching him and he did everything I taught him. Yet everything came out different. This is amazing. I know. I hope to teach him everything so he can produce something better than this and original. Although Naruto's work is impressive, it's still a novice's work. He can try but it still look like a child's doodle. Well, he is still a child. However, with time Kirito believe his student would be famous. I can just see it, he will be amazing. The world will come to recognize his work. The warden unconsciously nodded but flown in his statement. It reminded him of the child status. His sentence was to be locked up without parole. Konoha literally condemned him to never see daylight, figuratively speaking. As the warden, he had given the boy much leeway, but it's never enough to soothe his conscience for keeping him in here. Of course, due to the boy's circumstance, he had been doing a bit of research. It wasn't difficult to find out that he's Konoha's Jinchuriki. Unfortunately, that only complicates matters. Not in the way that he hates him, but more in the manner where the boy could be in danger. Through history, ninja wars were started because of bijus. If he is correct, Naruto could be in more danger if his true status were known to the ninja world. Again, he wonder why the village sent their Jinchuriki to him. The warden keeps finding himself asking the same question. Are the ninjas that stupid? Unfortunately, fear can cripple even the bravest ninja. The Hokage may have had other reasons, sending Naruto away until he can convince the villagers otherwise. The ninja clans, however, played ignorant. It's the out of sight, out of mind, not a clan member, not their problem type of thinking. They had witnessed the Kyuubi in action, and not only did the beast took away the lives of their clan members, it humiliated them. If the beast is somehow got loose, it's better it's not in the village. Hence, despite the ridiculous evidence the civilians cooked up, very few cared to challenge it. He knew it would be pointless to count on the ninja village, hence he will have to protect the kid in his own way. So far, only he and his head prison guard knew about Naruto's little secret, and he intended to keep it that way. He's contemplated to inform Ryoma. He knew the man wouldn't had cared but choose not to inform him. The reason the head guard was informed is because he was a ninja once and knew a little bit about seals. It was well known that it's the yellow flash that sealed away the beast, hence it should hold for a while. As long as the kid doesn't use its chakra, it would be safe to assume they are relatively safe. Like a vault that's sealed away and never to be opened, as long as Noon is looking for it or the owner knowing about it, it's unlikely to be found. Hopefully, without any conflict or ninjas, Naruto can live the peaceful life he deserved. Coming back to the present, the warden was just in time to see subject they are talking about coming forth. In his hands, it's another painting. There are obvious improvement, thus why he's bringing it over to show it. Hi, Warden-san. Hi, Naruto-kun. Good job on your latest painting. I can see you are improving. Thanks, Warden-san. Kirito-sensei is teaching me how to get the texture right. Don't worry, kiddo. You will get there eventually. It took me years to get to where I am today. If you can do this in a few months, I would be laughing stock in the art community. Alright, if you say so. Don't worry, Naruto-kun. Just enjoy painting as you are, encourages the warden. Thanks, I will, Warden-san. Despite having a name Dojima, everyone still calls him Mr. Warden or Warden-san. Of course, the more time Naruto spends in the art room, he will be missed elsewhere. That's exactly what's happening now in the cafeteria. Hey, what happened to the kid? Don't know, hadn't seen him this morning. You think those Konoha scum did something to him? Nah, Ryomasama would had known. He had others watching those idiots 24/7. The kid's practically his godson, even fools would understand what he will do to them should anything happen to the kid. Thank Ryomasama for that, the kid could do with someone watching his back. Amen to that. God knows how he managed to survive this long if all his people were like that. He's probably be better off in here. Anyway, Ro said he saw him at lunch, ordering his favorite ramen again. Ramen again? I swear that's all he ever eats. Maybe we should do a barbecue, hamburgers, etc. Anything to get him off that stuff. You can try and it will probably go through. The guards and warden seem to have a soft spot for the kid. Good. Maybe that's something the kid needs after all that crap from his home village. By the way, I heard the kid's been hanging around the art room. What? By that nut job Kirito? Better him than you. At least he's teaching the kid some sensible stuff. Maybe you are right. It's kinda quiet whiteout him. They may not want to admit it, but without that little sunshine around, they were all feeling a little lonely. The short time he was with them, it made them feel like real uncles and mentors. At least it's better than that ninja and Hokage crap. You're right, aside from ramen all the kid ever talked about is becoming Hokage. Had it been me, I would have gone missing on them. Perhaps that's why we are criminals, because I would have done the same, sighing the other inmate. Personally, I think the kid's better off being anything other than a stupid ninja. Yeah, you me both. Neither of them seem to lick ninjas, perhaps they were the reason why they are in prison. Then again, having learned of his treatment in that village, none of them want their little brother to fight for that place. That's essentially what ninjas do, fighting for their home. It may sound noble, but for Naruto the cruel reality is ninjas are tools to their village, thus essentially means serving and obeying the very place that abused him. The worst part is that he will be under the very same council that sign off his life sentence in prison. Hence, as the kid's big brother/uncle figure, they didn't think the village deserve him. On the other hand, Ryoma just happens to be on his way to visit the art room. He too was a little concerned for his godson. The Mob King had been watching him interact with the inmates, and usually he'd move on within days or maximum a week to something new. Yet through mouths of his men, they had telling him his godson's been revisiting the prison art room every day. It's extremely odd for a hyperactive kid like Naruto. Even after knowing him for some time, his godson didn't strike him as the patient and study type. So he decides to pay him a visit and see for himself how he's doing. At least as his godfather, he should personally see what got him so caught up on. Naruto still see him every day, but only for short time before leaving for the art room. While Ryoma isn't much of a art person, he should at least see what caught his godson's interest. The warden too had informed him how talented he is, but Naruto is only 6. That's when he arrives into the drawing room. As he scans the room, there are hundreds of paintings everywhere. However, he could easily pick out the ones made by his godson. Unlike Kirito's, his were immature. He wasn't sure if it's the right word because from an artistic point of view, Naruto's painting is very novice. It isn't childish-like but being very unskilled. Yet, just as the warden told him, there's something peculiar in his paintings. It's like some kind of cryptic message that he couldn't quite understand. Despite Kirito's painting being better, it's Naruto's that's catching his eye. Odd? Very odd. He didn't know how to describe it, perhaps it's because he know nothing about art. Ah, Ryoma-sama. Naruto sure has incredible talent. No, shit, thought the mob boss as he stared back at the unusually vibrant and talkative Kirito. As the prison gang leader, it's his business to know those in his circle, and he didn't remember the silent Kirito ever being this talkative. Perhaps like those other inmates, he too was changed by his godson. Seeing his godson this happy, he thought the two are good influence to one another. Please don't mind me, I only came to check up on my godson. Carry on. Thanks, godfather. Kirito-san is really great. He's just showing how to flow with my heart instead of my mind. Obviously Ryoma didn't understand what it meant but nodded anyway with a smile. He stayed a bit to watch their interaction. As he initially deduced, the two had somehow formed a connection, a master and apprentice relationship. Perhaps it's a good thing, it will at least make his godson forget about training as shinobi. Since then, everything became routine for our knucklehead blonde. Every day he would interact with fellow inmates in meal times before starting his apprenticeship with Kirito. It's no different to the ninja academy, only he would be studying art instead of ninja stuff. However, unlike the academy, he had no classmates and the study session is longer. It's more like a job than a study, hence why it is called apprenticeship. So over the years, our hero followed the same schedule. He hardly noticed the Konoha group neither, Ryoma made sure of that. Hence, they were always in the corner and in the background. With the help of the warden and Ryoma's men watching them, Naruto was never near their line of sight. These short-sighted people can moan and complain about unfair treatment, but Noon gave a shit. If they still couldn't take a hint, there's always the fists and none get seriously punished. Hey, look at the mess. Who do you think doing the cleanup, eh? Next time, if you have to fight, do it outside. This was said right in front of the Konoha victim as he stared at the scolding guard. What about punishment? I am the one getting beat up. Well, you shouldn't get into a fight in the first place. Next time, don't start fights that you can't finish. Hurry along now, you can still walk. Pull your sorry ass to the infirmary. It's no different to a slap on hand as punishment. Funny enough, they somehow couldn't see how this is any different to themselves in Konoha when they got away from roughing up the kid. Of course, they wouldn't see it that way when the pain is inflicted on another. Only when they were on receiving end do they see it as unfair and corruption. They are cowards, so gradually they will bend to the majority, thus hang in the background. It was for this reason that our hero can slowly forget about them, especially when he had such a large family watching over him. Deep down in his conscience, these people are his precious family. Even without Haku, it seems he's destined for that motto. He had always been a lonely child, thus his greatest desire is unchanged to be surrounded by friends and family. The prison may not be much of a home, but to our hero, it's no different to Konoha. It may be smaller, but in here he is normal and surrounded by people that cared for him, inmates, godfather, guards, and the warden. He omits the Konoha party since he don't know if they are still around. Aside from Kirito, he too spends time with other inmates. The fire prison does not house criminals from just fire country, as there are others from another nation. Hence, there are always interesting places and stories for him to hear. There's Suna, Kiri, few from lightning, and they can tell him a little about their home country or village. Some even told him about the Valley of End where the two famous ninjas clashed. When he was in Konoha, nobody except the Hokage and the Ikarakus talked to him. He's maybe serving life sentence, but he's glad they are willing to talk to him and telling him about those places. Although still a kid, Naruto seemed to have special gift in sensing others' emotions. It's another reason why they like him, because through those interactions he can sense their troubles and tries to cheer them up. It had been 4 years, he's now 10, since he arrived. Thanks to his master's effort, his paint skills and knowledge are almost at the level of his master's. Both Kirito and the warden had been calling him a prodigy. Despite his young age, he had learned everything Kirito has to teach, including some of the historical paintings across the ninja world. Yes, the elemental nation isn't all about ninjas and jutsus. Obviously there are famous painters and paintings through the nation's history and art circle. Even in the prison art room, there's a small library with famous paintings, and sometimes the master and apprentice would use them as reference. Overall, there were fun times they had together until one day. To Kirito's surprise, Naruto painted a faceless female. What's this, Naruto? Why hadn't you painted her a face? Surely, we have enough material for you to give the woman a pretty face. Wah! Sensei? You scared me. Actually, the painting was supposed to be my mother, but I just realized I didn't know what she looked like, he said sheepishly. I don't even know whether she had blonde hair or not. Kirito now too can see his dilemma. Oh, yeah. I guess the little bundle in her arm is you. Now that you mentioned it, I can see strands of blonde hair. Even without the face, Kirito can feel the love of the faceless mother. Just from her posture and way she held the little bundle, you can see how caring she is for her child. Even without his student's strange and odd powers, the portrait illustrated perfectly how the woman's attention is fully on the baby. Although there's still no face, but Kirito can faintly see the joy she has and serene look she must have. This is marvelous, Naruto. You have truly outdone yourself this time. Lately, his teacher had been praising his art. It's also a little puzzling because what he did was everything his sensei taught him. So why make such a big deal out of it? Despite that, he's still a little embarrassed by the praise, but he responded. Thanks sensei, but I still can't paint a face on her. Thinking a little, he had decided. Hey, listen Naruto. Why don't you paint another, this time with a face? Here, use this photo. Who is she? She's my mother but she's long gone. Think you can make another one? I am quite curious what the completed version would look like. Unfortunately neither could anticipate what happens after. Naruto was his usual self, knowing it's his sensei's mother he work extra hard to bring out the true mother from the photograph. On the other hand, Kirito too must had wanted something to come out of his student's work. Even he himself didn't know what to expect nor understand why he asked his apprentice to paint his mother. Nevertheless, Naruto did what was asked. It took him hours, starting with the sketch followed by the color before applying the textures. The whole time he worked, Kirito watched without saying anything. Recently he's been doing that a lot and occasionally give pointers until he stopped giving entirely. Just like how he had taught him, Naruto start off with faint sketches before applying layers of paint. As it slowly takes form, Kirito can see the small resemblance of his last portrait only with a different color hair. He tweaked the head from the photo to make her look like her attention is on her baby. This includes her eyes as he somehow managed to add gentleness in them. Especially with her hand over the bundle, like she's gently stroking her baby with care. Overall, it's the perfect mother and child story. It captures the greatness of motherhood and importance of one's loving mother. The effort and care your mother once had on you or the time you couldn't remember how your birth mother held you. Looking into the portrait gave you just that. Yet that's just the surface as true art analysis can read the tale behind each painting. To Kirito, it's the story between himself and his mother. What touched him was the loving look his mother gave him when he first came into this world. At least that's how he interpret the story. He still submerged himself in the painting that he almost didn't hear his student. Apparently, the paint took them almost past curfew and Naruto had to return back to his cell. Good night, sensei. Night, Naruto, he responded without turning from the painting, still admiring it. Naruto mistaken thought he's inspecting for mistakes but that's far from the truth. His sensei always claimed he's a prodigy but sadly Naruto couldn't find himself to believe him. Perhaps it's his lack of upbringing that he seldom received praises, so when he suddenly starts getting them he thought they were just being nice. Not that he's unhappy but it's just that he doesn't think his work is worthy of such praise because in his mind he thinks his sensei could do better. Kirito often tell him to read between lines and try to see with the third eye. It's all gibberish to him, who on the elemental nation had 3 eyes, yes I know, Kagaya Otsutsuki, but we are far from that or will she ever appear in this story. Even after all these years and improvement in skill, Naruto still couldn't grasp the oddly terms his sensei use. Okay, he can understand that there's no boundaries to art, but how does the heart know the right way? He often says that art is dependent on an individual's heart and how they perceive them. Yet, his bull-headed student would ask him to explain how a heart feels something without touching it? Or for him to show him this third eye? Seriously, how does one understand what another's heart wants? Regardless whether he's a prodigy or not, Naruto is still a child. Perhaps it's his immature side that's preventing him from seeing what's there. He's a hyperactive child, combined with his bash personality and lack of patience made it difficult for him to appreciate the deeper meaning of art. While he's painting, he can focus. Because he's actively doing something, thus how he could create remarkable creations. Agreed, he's no doubt a genius and a prodigy. However, it wasn't his art that defined whom he is. It is in fact the depth of his creation that truly define what kind of artist he is. As every creation of his sends unusual but powerful messages. To give an example, we can use an iceberg motivational poster we see today, see. The poster sends a powerful image of nature, showing viewers the true appearance of an iceberg beneath the surface. Had this been Naruto's work, aside from the iceberg he would have added a moderate-size fishing boat to enhance the picture. Big and small, high and low, black and white, those were the theme our blonde painter liked to use in his work. Hence, in term of artistic representative, Naruto is quite a genius, but his work often carry additional meaning to an adult. Aside from the art, those that had seen his work couldn't help but speculate if there's another meaning. Since they knew him, Naruto obviously didn't think or purposely add any hidden message. However, for an adult there's a glaring message in the art. His latest work, for example, remind viewers of their childhood. A time they couldn't remember, a mother that once watching over them and caring for them. A loving mother that brought them into this world. This was especially true for Kirito, as he knew the woman in the portrait is his mother. Unfortunately, little did Naruto know at the time, that day will be the last day he see his sensei. Apparently the real reason Kirito is in prison was killing his own mother. He was an abused child, his mother being the aggressor and always blaming him for her misery. Despite that, he did take a human life, thus was sent to fire prison. However, after seeing Naruto's portrait, his finally guilt caught up to him. Despite knowing it's not what his mother really looked like, he couldn't handle seeing that side of her. For as long as he can remember, his mother had always been evil, therefore he didn't feel guilty killing her. Unfortunately, thanks to Naruto's imaginations, he saw another side of her that he could never believe is possible. As a result, he couldn't handle the truth she could be once not evil as she was. Luckily, this all happened overnight. Kirito had earned himself special privilege, thus he can stay in the art room for longer periods. Naruto too fell in that category, but the warden wanted to know his whereabouts at all times, thus like other prisoners he too must go back to his cell. For this reason, Kirito's body was only discovered when one of the guards came round for his routine check. There they found him dead via hanging. Since it's the middle of the night, only the warden was called. From there, his body was quietly handled and everything cleaned up before sunrise. There wasn't much of an investigation needed, as one look from the portrait was enough for the warden to deduce everything. "Oh, Kirito. What have you done?" He could understand his reason, but his main problem wasn't the body but Naruto. Thankfully, there's a message left for him. Since it wasn't sealed, he can read it. "Naruto, I am sorry for not letting you know before leaving, but thanks to you and your painting I finally have closure for myself. I once spoken to you about paths and each of us having our own. Well, I think I found mine. Despite the short time we have known one another, I am glad that we had met. You are the best apprentice anyone can have, and I still believe you have a talent to rise above any artist, including myself. Have some confidence, I know you can do it. My only regret is not being there to see it. Sadly, there's not much I can offer you as parting gift, but everything in the art studio is yours if you want it. Your sensei, Kirito." At least he didn't mention anything about suicide, thought the warden with a little relief. When it comes to the boy, life seems to keep giving him the short straw. It's as if he's some kind of child of destiny, that they put one challenge after another in his life. The kid was already an orphan. Aside from being alone and neglected, he's hated by most people in his village. Then there's the QB sealed inside of him. The warden couldn't finish counting how foo *** up his life was. If prison wasn't enough, his closest friend/family kill himself. Thus, he knew the kid will be devastated. His only consolation is that he had a few hours to think of something. It was his sensei's message. He recognized his handwriting and been rereading it several times already. Why didn't sensei tell me? He had been asking himself that over and over. Was it just like those horrible villagers said to him, he's unwanted and a curse? The whole event seemed to trigger some unpleasant memories from his past. He wanted to be mad at his sensei, but he couldn't because that would be selfish. He couldn't cry either. he had long ago learned it wouldn't solve anything, so he stopped trying. The inmates around him may treat him nice like a family, none of them were the consoling type, and more importantly, he didn't like to be pitted. With the absence of the room's main user, our blonde friend became its sole occupant. Without Kirito, the place somehow felt much larger, less lively and scarier. He could still recall the moment Warden Dojima came into the room. At first, he was a little surprised, because his sensei is usually there before anyone. He should have thought something was off, but he didn't. At least not until the warden came in. His expression should have alerted him something was wrong, but he was too dumb to notice. That's when he was given the news and the last note by his sensei. The warden tries to console him and explain to him the circumstances. Naruto, I am sorry. You should know that this had always been a prison. Once you served your time, it's time to leave. However, I am surprised that Kirito didn't tell you. Putting his hand on his shoulder, he continued. He always hated goodbyes, perhaps that's his way in telling you that. The warden didn't want to give him too much hope because he knew that he's dead. It's the main reason he didn't tell him the truth. I know how close he is to you. Just don't take it too hard, but treasure the memory that you had together. He knew it wasn't much, but the boy shouldn't have to go through such traumatic event in his age. Especially when he's just picking up pieces of his life. This is a type of burden he could do without. Considering the circumstance of Kirito's death, the warden didn't want the young child to feel responsible. His death was because of his own guilt and it had nothing to do with Naruto's painting. Maybe it does, and the circumstances and evidence seems to point to it. Hence, the truth was kept secret, especially from the idiotic Konoha group. So far, Dojima had only told one person, and that is Ryoma. He knew sooner or later, the prison mob boss will find out, and by then it's possible he wouldn't be able to control the damage. Therefore, it's better he's informed than having his people digging around and eventually finding the truth. In order to keep it under control, the mob boss and the warden will handle it on two fronts. On the warden's side, he had the guards discovering the body put on vacation leave. That way, there won't be any accidental leaks. At least until things died down. The mob boss too keep his side under wraps, knowing Kirito's sudden disappearance will get him on many inmates' bad side. Thus, some of his people might try to find him. That's where Ryoma will run damage control. That foo ********* Kirito, how could he just leave? Have you seen what our boy is like? It pains them to see their little sunshine so gloomy and they not able to do anything about it. Yeah, heartless **********. One of my cousin is a ninja and good at tracking, we could hire her. She could send him a message from all of us. Luckily before the conversation could get out of hand, Ryoma stopped them. Leave him alone, no matter how he is. He's still my godson's teacher. The boy's already a wreck, I don't need you making it worse by beating him up. If Naruto want you to find him, fine. But not a moment before. Sighing a little, Ryoma continued. Let the kid deal with it for now. It's a little tough love, but their leader was right, it's ultimately the Naruto's decision. Despite that, it's still tough for them to watch him holding himself in the art room for at least a week. Every day, the inmates would take turns to bring him food and showing him their support. It's the most they could do since none of them knew how to console a child. All they could offer were their fist to beat up his teacher. They did make Naruto chuckle when he imagined his teacher with a black eye. In return, our hero thanked them, letting them know it's not necessary. Besides, Kirito didn't leave him empty-handed. Aside from the art room, he left him a note. Naruto, you want me to thump him? Emphasize his action by smacking his fist into his palm. You know, I too will leave in 2 years. I can track him down and bash him a bit for you. Remembering Ryoma's words, he quickly added. I won't kill him, only a black eye or two. It made him laugh when he thought about his sensei with panda eyes. Nah, thanks Utana-san. I am alright. Kirito-sensei's leaving was just a little too sudden that I didn't know what to think. He had taught me a lot over the years. Hell, I don't even know if I should be mad or not. After putting some thought into it, he says. I tell you what, let me sort this out and I will let you know if I want you to thump him before you leave. Deal? Deal, he quickly responded. Hey, kid. You know we will do anything for you, you know that, right? All you need to do is just ask. I know, Utana-san. Again, thanks. In their own way, the inmates got a chance to talk to him and made him feel better. They may not be perfect, but in their own way they were like a family. Just like Kirito, he learned that they too will one day leave. As Warden Dojima suggested, their memories together will not be forgotten. During his time alone, he thought about everything and anything. He thought about his life choice, what he learned up until now, most of all, his dream. More specifically, his Shinobi/Hokage dream. Why did I want to be a ninja again, he asked himself. Oh, right. It was to become Hokage. Why did I want to become a Hokage in the first place? Oh, yeah. It was one of his promises to his Jiji, grandfather. He could still faintly remember that day when the aged village leader told him about the past glory of Hokages and how they were respected. It was one of those days where he was kicked out of the orphanage and the Sandaime spent the day with him. By the end of that day, and as naive as he was, he said he wanted to earn the same respect those leader had, thus result in his drive for the Hokage hat. His bold claim of becoming Hokage was never his intention to annoy those around him. It was actually to remind himself of that goal while giving himself strength. In his situation, it's better to think the end justifies the means. That's how he weathered the pain and sadness as he tell himself he will one day be respected. Now that he had spent time with criminals, he starts to see the world for what it is. The world isn't black and white like he naively thought it was. In fact, most of these so-called criminals aren't even 20% admitted they did bad things, but nothing extreme like raping or serial killers types. Especially with Ryoma around, those criminals wouldn't last a few hours. The bossman hates those types with passion, and so do the rest of the inmates. The warden did try to step in, but it made no differences. Those prisoners were willing to accept punishment just to remove those types. Anyway, there are also many inmates that were innocent or just guilty of petty crimes. Reality is harsh because doing the right thing doesn't automatically earn you a bright future. The more Naruto listens, the more realize what it means to have a criminal record. Even after these people were released, the world may not see them the same way. Loved ones, family, even friends may not be there. Out there, society will see you differently when you are a criminal. You are an outcast and will be treated like one. The world was never black and white as he knew them, and he was surrounded by that same controversy since his birth. Even on daily life basis, there's always a very fine line between good and evil. Hence, even when you go back out there, the world is never the same. As some of the inmates explained to him, his arrival to the prison is a setup. Unfortunately for him, the likely culprits are obviously the people from his home village. Slowly, our hero starts to understand how big of a scandal it was and what kind of people were involved. As a result, he can see the truth in whom was responsible for him to be in here in the first place. Perhaps not the Hokage, but the noble clans all signed his imprisonment. So does he still want to be a Hokage? Through his hard life, he had to learn to grow up faster than his peers and adapt to his situation. While a little mature for his age, he was nevertheless still a child with only the Hokage looking out for him. It was for this reason that he had hope, a time that he believed could change people's view on with simply determination and persistence alone. Like every child his age then, he wanted to be a hero, he wanted to be the good guy. Sadly, reality perceives hero differently, they were given that title for their sacrifice. Again, this brought our young hero back to the very same question: is he willing to sacrifice for these people? These short-sighted people? He learned this term from fellow inmates, as they explained to him how disgusting these people were, and Konoha is full of them. Becoming ninja means protecting the village, and by extension people like them. Does he seriously still want to become a ninja, let alone the Hokage? The answer he found truthfully is the no. It's the only conclusion he came to, and yet what about his home? Our hero had to ask himself what it meant to himself. Is Konoha home? He's thinking that because they literally booted him out, or rather locked him away so he couldn't return. To him, it was still the most beautiful place in his mind. Countless ninjas had given their lives to protect it, including the past Hokages. Konoha is a symbol of hope, but can he do the same, to protect it? It had already been 4 years, and that's almost half of his life away from that village. He had already decided not to become a ninja, but Konoha is a different matter. After thinking for a while, he knew he had to do something. In the end, he turns to act. Grabbing his painting equipment, but instead of heading to the nearest canvas, he left for the courtyard. His sudden appearance surprised everyone, along with his strangely focused attitude as he inspects one building to the next. Once settling on the biggest one, he starts scribbling. Naruto had been holing himself in the art room for nearly a week, and everyone's worried. Hence, when he stormed out into the yard with his painting equipment, they were surprised. All the attention were centered on him, but he somehow ignored them. That's strange, because their little brother is always looking for attention. It was for this reason that the usually noisy courtyard suddenly turned silent. With his new silent, one-track and focused behavior, the others suddenly didn't know how to handle him. Later he even brought a ladder and reaching for higher parts of the wall. Some thought he's making some kind of graffiti or in some kind of rebellion streak. Surprisingly, not even the prison guards came to stop him as he continues to vandal the wall. The warden was obviously alerted as he's watching through the huge window from his office. Of those present, only those from Konoha spoke negatively against him. The demon must have finally gone nuts. Although he was only whispering, but none of his fellow Konoha inmates laughed with him. It wasn't that they disagree, but they know there will be consequences if they do. True enough, the fool was rewarded with a fist to the face. Clearly, someone didn't like their little brother insulted, thus made his intention known. None of the other Konoha inmates dared to speak out because they know they will be pulled along into another full-course beating. Strangely, these people are more attentive than their ninja umbus. No matter where they are, Ryoma's men are always nearby. It's like they were waiting for them to slip and make stupid comments. Even if they breath the wrong way, they will somehow know and made sure their messages are delivered. This time, the fool was lucky because they would usually drag him away for a beating. However, this time his aggressor is a little preoccupied by the courtyard's main attraction. They all knew he's not one to do something without reason, hence they are. After a while, it became apparent he's not doing any graffiti or vandalism. In fact, he's marking the wall and maybe some kind of measurement. It was followed by more feverish scribbling. They know the boy doesn't do anything for no reason, so they were curious. Slowly part of a mountain can be faintly seen along with some trees. There are also a lot of lines they can't make out or recognize. Seeing him climbing up and down the ladder, someone decides to voice up. "Hey, help him," bark Ryoma as he's out there watching his godson. Ryoma can see whatever he's doing is important to him, so he's willing to help him achieve it. The inmates seemed to understand what needed to be done as they rushed to find materials. It was obvious, since they couldn't help him in what he do, they can help him ascend the heights instead. Through his activities, it seems he will be using the entire wall, and that's how high they will build the scaffolding. As this is going on, only those from Konoha shown disgust. They learned well not to voice their distaste as there's always Ryoma's men lurking around. As the whole prison pit in their efforts, the group couldn't help but snarl at the scene, claiming favoritism. They were all rewarded with a black eye each for their contribution. While everyone's curious, it is unfortunately not a quick job, as Naruto spent hours and hours on it. He was so determined to complete it he worked through the night. The warden was understanding enough, as he authorized the floodlights throughout the night. He even had guards watching over him. It turns it wasn't necessary, as most of the inmates stayed to accompany him. However, as the project dragged on and with the warden's insistence, many had to return back to their cells. The warden claims he didn't need that many of them as distraction and let him do as he please. They came to a compromise and leaving a few inmates to watch over him in case he needs anything. Thankfully, even though he worked through the night, he took naps every now and then. Unfortunately, when he woke up he's back on his project and missing meals. Concerned for his health, the others left him something nearby in case he grew hungry. They were even more worried when he was so engrossed in his work that he didn't notice them. However, later they breathed a sigh of relief seeing he ate them. He even left them a painted thank you message. So, aside from the occasion meals and bathroom breaks, our hero couldn't stay away from his project. The other inmates were told to not disturb him, so all they could do is wait. Days go into weeks, followed by the month, and Naruto finally emerged from behind the cover. They can tell he's ready, because he's back to his usual self. Hence, why everyone's gathering around the courtyard. It's quite a commotion because most of the inmates were curious and the month's wait was antagonizing. When he pulls away the cover, his work finally reveals itself. The effect was instantaneous as the whole courtyard fell into stunned silence. It's probably because all their jaws were hanging loose from their mouth. Although the scaffolding are still in the way, it could not diminish the magnificence of what they are seeing. Some may had seen a glimpse during its creation, but its complete form blew them away. It's a village, more specifically it's his home village, Konohagakure. Many may not know it, but those from Konoha instantly recognize their home. It's Konoha, cries one prisoner as he recognizes his own home. What did you say? Another inmate grabbed him and picking him up roughly, thinking he's insulting the boy. That's Konoha, the demon brat drew our village, a slip with his tongue as he answered under panic. After releasing him, the bigger inmate socks him. That's for the demon brat. Comment. Call him that again, I will break your arm. Normally, the fool would have gotten himself another full-course beating, but he's very lucky this time because the bigger inmate is busy admiring what their little brother did. Similarly, through the warden's window the people inside were equally surprised. Is that what I think it is? Asks the head guard. Yeah, while I personally never been there. The 4 heads on the mountain were a dead giveaway. Besides, the symbol of the ninja village on the village gate is obvious. It is Konohagakure. I heard you said he's talented, but this is. Wow, it was all he could say to describe the impossible sensation. Back on the yard, as the wind gently blew, the wall painting starts to manifest itself like a living entity. Combined with the theme, Spring Blossom, he used, his creation is like an illusion pulling everyone into a cherry blossom sightseeing event. For a moment, they could feel the spring and beautiful bright blue skies it had. Just from one glance, the wall art felt more alive than their current surrounding. However, only a small group was not pleased by its effects. This got to be a trick. It's the demon's magic. How can a demon produce something like this? Demon are ugly, even their heart are ugly, so how can it produce something such as this? The wall painting isn't just magnificent, it could be considered divine. Like a god's creation, but that's opposite to what demons are capable of. Were they wrong this whole time? That he wasn't a demon? No, it's got to be a trick. None of them wanted it to be true because deep down they couldn't accept it. Especially when they look at the 4th's head, it reminded them of something they were unwilling to think about or admit. Hence, they see denial as their only escape. They want to stay ignorant, and be vigilante in their hate for the demon. That creation is a mockery from the demon, taunting them and trying to brainwash them. While everyone is still stunned by the wall painting, one Konoha prisoner chooses that moment to act. His intent was clear, as he plans to destroy that eyesore before it corrupt them. He almost succeeded, but near the end he couldn't because the wall painting is too realistic. What they see and feel is like the essence of their home. Destroying it is no different to destroying tranquility, harmony and serenity it represented. Perhaps this was the demon's intention, turning them into the very same demon that trashed their village 10 years ago. Hence, why he couldn't do it. Instead he broke down in front of the painting. This of course was witnessed by everyone in the courtyard and those in the warden's office through his window. Incredible, he's now even more convinced that Naruto's creation is more than just simple art. It defeat even those die-hard Konoha cultists. The head guard was speechless as he had never seen anything like it. They had seen what those Konoha nutjob could do and the extremes they go, but this was unprecedented. They were willing to immorally harm a child but not a lifeless painting? Okay, lifeless is still debatable because the wall art is somehow more alive than the rest of the prison. That's when the head guard noticed something on the warden's face. "Warden-san? Are those tears?" "Wah. No, something must have got into my eye." Feeling a little embarrassed, the warden decides to change the subject. "Anyway, you better go down there." "Right. I will be on my way." Yes, the warden is right. He needs to get back to work before Ryoma's men kills any of the prisoners. With Warden Dojima, aside from its obvious beauty, he also felt a sense of sadness from the painting. Not that the painting is alive, but in the way how it's painted. The feeling is like a message, farewell or goodbye. Is that Naruto's message? If so, whom is he saying goodbye to? Kirito? Konoha? Naruto's work continues to be a mystery, it only made him admire it more. Down below, due to one Konoha inmate's surprising behavior, the rest were seized. "Hey, we aren't doing anything." "No, no, no. Stay away from me. We swear, we won't be going anywhere near it." As this was going on, they quickly realized their blonde little brother is not among them. This made them more angry and accusation were thrown. "Did you motherf ******** do something to the boy?" The poor Konoha inmate was manhandled roughly and they are now very scared. "No, no. Please. We didn't do anything. We swear, it's not us. We didn't plan anything." Sadly, Noon believed them. Especially after what happened earlier on and the unpleasant memory many years ago. "If any one of you had anything to do with this, there won't be any Konoha scum here after today." It just became personal as what the inmate said doesn't seem like he's joking. The idiots were hauled away like worthless baggage. This time and for once they sincerely hope nothing happened to the kid because their life will be depending on it. When the prison guards finally appear, it didn't get better for them. "What's going on? The kid's missing." A lot of hateful glares were sent to the helpless group's way. "They say they didn't do anything," says the tough and biggest inmate in charge, not to defend them but to hurry it along. "You believe them?" questions the guard. "They better, because we will be cleaning house if they did," the inmate said menacingly. It's a horrifying moment for the Konoha lot as none of the guards seem to care for their well-being. "Spread out. We take south and west, you guys north and east," barked the lead guard. Quickly they divide among themselves looking for the youngest member of their family. With both manpower and efficiency, it didn't take long to find him. They found him sleeping soundly in his own cell, completely obvious to the chaos he had unknowingly caused. Despite the big scare, none of them could be mad at him in the end. Seeing his peaceful look in his sleep, they can tell he must have unburdened the burden he had. Breathing a sigh of relief, they slowly disperse themselves. Only the Konoha lot are getting mixed feelings through this ordeal. It was scary because the muscular inmates seemed disappointed he couldn't rip them to shreds. The worst part is even if they protest, Noon would listen. It's barbaric and they were almost put through the death door because of that demon. However, one thing they learned, these people mean serious business. The hint had always been there, only in their feeble minds think that nobody would go that far. Obviously they were wrong, and these people are very dangerous. This encounter made them think twice what their feeble life is worth. Apparently, based on the guards' reaction it wasn't much, and that's incentive enough to watch for their own health interests. As for our little hero, he's oblivious to the events around him. From the disappearance of his sensei to completing his Konohagakure, he deserved his rest. Free from his burden, when he wake up it will be a fresh start to a new life. He was not wrong, because thanks to that event he will be receiving many visitors in near future. Even those not into art would be curious after seeing Konohagakure. Similarly, the warden did not know about Naruto's disappearance until much later. He's busy making calls and necessary arrangement for the prison's renovation. After seeing what Naruto had done, he knew he couldn't leave the art out there in the open. Hence, he's calling in favors and contractors for potential remodeling. While this is going on, he had to think about how to hide the art from those people. He also realized he still need to talk to Naruto. He may love his art but he can't exactly call for renovation every time he make another wonder. At the same time, he's also conflicted because he wants to see more of his creation. In the meantime, he will also need both the approval and funding from the Fire Lord. Hopefully, he can come up with a reasonable and convincing excuse. As for his talk with Naruto, he will later find out he will have to wait because he's asleep. Unfortunately, he will get anther shock before that when the news of his disappearance reach him. Later he will have time to think about the events. He will find that Naruto have a knack of putting himself in center of attention. Being a Jinchurike, he's obviously is every ninja village's interest. However, now even as a civilian he's a natural in attracting people to him. Dojima will wonder if this is some kind of bloodline. Then again, as an artist he's already extraordinary. He would rise easily among the wealthy community and capturing their attention. So as either a ninja or civilian, he will not escape attention. Hence, it's only be a matter of time. This is especially troublesome with the ignorant Konoha group because once they are released and return back to their village, Dojima expect another political storm. He wasn't worried about them reporting about their inhumane treatment because a lot of prisoners were delusional to think they had rights. However, it's them reporting Naruto's extraordinary gift that Dojima is worried about. Those fools may not understand how special his paintings are, but once news spreads, trouble will no doubt follow. Sadly, the worst-case scenario would be enslavement. In the world of ninjas, secrets aren't really secrets because it's just something to be discovered. However, in the meantime, he will do all he can to protect him for as long as possible. So over in the next days, odd activities was seen from the yard. Hey, what are they doing? Why are they covering Boya's work? I heard that the warden's planning to preserve it. Something about keeping it from the weather. There are also some rumors about remodeling as well. Really? I can see why. The warden's pulling out all the guns, eh? Yeah, aside from Ryomasama, it's good thing that the warden is watching out for our Boya. Well, that's partially true. I heard that it's also a bit personal. Everybody knows that Warden Dojima had a thing for art. Can't blame him. The more I look at that the more proud I am of the boy. He came a long way. You me both, Kirito did a great job. I couldn't believe it when I saw it. You could almost touch the village itself. Yeah, you said it. Why don't we go and say hi to the kid? Maybe we can also check out what else he has. Good idea, the kid could use some company since Kirito left. Personally, I think we should visit more often. Apparently, they weren't the only inmate there as Naruto had many visitors. The art room is now more cleaned up and it has a mini gallery. Over the years, Kirito had been putting up their best work and competing against one another for placement. In just about a year ago, Naruto's pieces had been dominating the recent spaces. Although, Kirito's work are good, but it's Naruto's painting in terms of creativity that stood out. His teacher often praised him for his execution and innovation. He encouraged him to continue in his out-of-the-box thinking as his mind is the most powerful tool. As others came to check out his collection, one inmate seemed to recognize something. "Hey, Naruboy. Isn't that?" "Oh, Hosuke-san, I am glad you recognize that. It's based on the desert home you once told me. I thought it would be a nice idea to put it in the portrait. Besides, the legendary desert flower does have a nice ring to it." Hosuke was lost for words. "How did you do it? I mean, how did you get the details just right?" "Oh, most of it came from your story. Others from a little research. That was years ago, you still remember?" "Of course, I am not that old. I would never forget what you told me and how you discovered the legendary lotus. I can still remember how you said it's both a legendary and a miracle flower because lotuses don't grow on a desert. Legend has it that it would only bloom one time a year and only during the full moon. It's legendary because none ever saw it over the period of 500 years until you. Am I right?" Hosuke couldn't help but respond with a nod. The painting captured the perfect moment as the lotus was illuminated by the moonlight under the clear desert night sky. In the background there's also what he think is the Suna village, you can even see the tiny lights from within. It was simply beautiful, although the ninja village could use some work, but that's probably his fault because the flower was all he talked about. It had been a symbol of hope for the desert people living in the unforgiving environment. As Hosuke looked closely, he can see small dew resting on the lotus as it reflects off the moonlight. Even by looking through the painting, he can somehow feel the chill of the desert night. At first, he thought it was just his imagination or that the portrait reminding him of his home. However, the more he looked into it, the more he felt his connection with the painting. Naruto had outdone himself again, even down to the details. The barren sand surrounding the flower emphasized the harsh condition of desert life during the day, no other vegetation or even life forms. The details were impeccable and Hosuke couldn't take his eyes off it. Even by looking, he can feel the chill and unconsciously shiver with goosebumps on his arms. "It's yours if you like it, Hosuke-san." "What?" "I said you can have it." Despite not understanding anything about art, Hosuke recognized its value. He was once a thief by trade, thus he knew such painting is one of a kind. "Boya, I couldn't accept something like that." "Why not?" "I got it from your story. Besides, I can always paint another whenever I want. Take it as a thank you gift for the inspiration." Hosuke can only shake his head. The kid is just too naive and innocent for his own good. On the other hand, he doubt he can let go once he put his hands on it, the temptation is too great. Oddly enough, he felt complete with it and would be happy to pay an arm and leg for it. It's like finding your soulmate. Like the painting was created specially for him, hence why the moment he laid his eyes on it, it caught his undivided attention. Thanks, kid. Don't worry about it. It wasn't just Hosuke, as many others too starts to appreciate his work. Aside from Hosuke, the warden too had received one of his paintings as gift. That happened a year ago, where Naruto wanted to show him his appreciation with a painting of his own. Knowing the warden liked art, he thought painting him a portrait would be a good idea. The trouble is, what should he put in the painting? Considering the warden's taste, it would be an insult if he just paint him a picture of the prison. Hence, Naruto had to put some thoughts into it. As per his sensei's suggestion, he should ask himself what he knew about the warden. So recalling from his memory, he remembered what his office looked like when he first arrived. There's a lot of painting and mostly about religions. At least that's what he thinks because he seemed to have a lot of painting with clouds and holiness, someone with a halo. He also remember a stuffed bird in the corner and that gave him the main inspiration. In the end, he choose an eagle as center, making it look like it just shot out above the clouds. Combined with the majestic view of the rising sun and endless white, it was majestic. Not only is the bird looked shocked, the pre-dawn setting of the scene was perfect and relaxing. The theme itself alone could be that the eagle is trying to challenge nature by ascending above the clouds and was generously rewarded by the sight. Like seeing the endless ocean for the first time, it's simply one breathtaking experience. There are those that might argue that the painting is insinuating someone to aim high, because the reward is worth it. For Dojima, this was perfect as he can spend a long time debating the possibilities. On the other hand, he had also fond admiration of the bird in the painting. On certain cultures, eagles are viewed as a sign of bravery and sometimes justice. Hence, it's no wonder how the warden favors it. Even when he was prepared, Dojima was still unprepared for what he received. It's simply beyond his expectations. The art is exceptional as always, but it is the theme that he found more appealing. It captured the perfect moment, the feeling of new discovery, new heights, challenge and the breathtaking reward. So over the weeks Naruto got busy fulfilling requests after request from his many brothers. Ryoma tries to stop it but the blonde artist was insistent so Ryoma had to back down. Naruto is just happy that they like his painting. Both Dojima and Ryoma had to sigh because they knew what those paintings are worth if they ever get released into the public, yet the boy just gives them away like nothing. On the other hand, those inmates too were ignorant. They were only thinking of pretty pictures. So unless you are somehow linked to the art community, most of them doesn't realize what they are getting. Knowing how naive Naruto is, none of them can convince him otherwise. Thankfully, like Hosuke his brothers never took advantage of him. As they all too think of him as their little brother. In return, Naruto became more driven to fulfill their wish and go beyond their expectations. In the end, everyone's happy. Dojima can only sigh, he didn't think these people don't deserve them. It's just like watch some kid passing out diamonds like they were just pebbles you find in the garden. He would rather these people understand more what was given to them. Explaining was pointless since none of them understand anything about art. Anyway, at least the guys weren't asking for some tough or impossible assignments. They were usually scenery and places, like the waterfall or a quiet lake house or something. Thanks to Kirito, Naruto learned what they are along with a small library of references. He used to call them picture books but were actually famous arts from various artists. Hence, most of those requests were fairly easy and Naruto is equally happy he can pay everyone back for their care. Unfortunately, not everyone love art. His godfather is one fine example, and Naruto felt himself indebted to him. Like a lovable child wanted to please her parents, Naruto too wanted to show him his appreciation. So until he does, he has other jobs to fulfill and excitingly a long list of orders to complete. Seeing this, Dojima can only shook his head lightly, claiming it being young. Then again, he's equally guilty in offering him unlimited supplies of equipment and resource. As result, in just a few months the prison is filled with his painting everywhere. They can be found in prisoners' private cells and some public areas. Of course, those public areas are overseen by guards in case the Konoha group are still holding grudges. Through the looks in their eyes, it's clear they hadn't let go of that hate. Then again, they couldn't do anything about it. Aside from the guards watching and protecting it. They knew if there's as most as a scratch on them they will be the first to be blamed and interrogated. Beside those points, the Konoha group chose to avoid them. Their reason was to keep themselves pure and not corrupted by the demon's influence. So over the months, everything went smoothly as expected and Naruto's work being kept within confines of the fire prison. However, things will change when inmates gets released and this was what the warden worried about. Hosuke is such lucky prisoner as he came by to say goodbye to the young artist. Sure Hosuke-san. When I say I am giving it to you, I meant it. So you can do whatever you want with it. From Naruto's point of view, he couldn't understand why Hosuke-san want his permission. He assumed it was just an excuse to say his goodbye, so the blonde artist reassure him he can do whatever he want with it. So in the end, Hosuke thanked him again before taking his leave. On his way, he was stopped by the warden. Thankfully, Dojima wasn't there to take back the painting but to warn him. Hosuke, rest assured I am not here to take back your possession. Since Naruto was generous enough to give it to you as gift, it's your right to do what you want with it. However, there's one advice I want to share with you before you are officially discharged: do not show that to anyone. As an art lover myself, I can tell you just how valuable that is. The warden had to pause to rethink what he said. I am sorry, I think the word valuable wouldn't do it justice. I hope you understand what I mean. Warden-sama, as I thank you for all those years taking care of me, I thank you also for your advice. You are right, and I had absolutely no intention of showing anyone what Naruto made for me. Honestly, with his work you don't need to be an expert to understand its value. I can assure you that even with a mountain of gold or 1,000 lifetime of riches would I ever sell it. It's something I know I will take to the grave. Hosuke said it adamantly and the warden believed him. The man may not be a role model but he seldomly say things he doesn't mean. Just promise me one thing, take good care of that kid. He's special, you know. You don't have to ask, I already knew. Beside being innocent to his crime, his placement's never to rot in the prison. Mark my words, it's only a matter of time and he will be out in the world again. Nodding his head in agreement, Hosuke left the prison to spend the rest of his life back in his home village. He's not young anymore but he's very contented in what he had, especially with the painting Naruto gifted to him. It was the desert lotus he discovered. He felt he could find peace just from staring at it. While it's undoubtedly slightly different, but he liked the boy's version. It was portrait just right and perfection that it was memorial, thus giving him a deeper connection to the real thing. Most of his paintings have that effect on you, hence why they are considered as masterpieces, according to the warden. Even after returning home, not once did he show his friend nor family that painting. It was only till his death was it became known when friends and family accidentally discover his basement. They never knew he had such secret and even more surprised when they found one sole painting. It was odd because there are nothing there, only one couch with a direct view of the painting. Of course, at the time of discovery they didn't know it was priceless. While they can understand its beauty, they had no idea why he would keep it in such a place and away from his family. Since it had no significant meaning to them, they decided to put on auction. However, little did they know it would trigger an international incident. As being said, the painting was put on auction. The family didn't expect much coming from an unknown painting, an unknown author, or where it came from. Even the experts were puzzled because they didn't recognize its signature or the artist. Nevertheless, they can understand that it is an exceptional painting. So they predicted that it may fetch them a few hundred or if they are lucky 1,000 ryo. They had such low expectations because the painting is an unknown, came from an unknown source. Although it was expertly made, without full authentication it's difficult to judge its value. In another word, this painting is a wild card. So depending on whom is in the auction house, it could go as high as the richest participant. When the auction got started, to their surprise the place was filled with no less than 10 daimyos. As it happens, the desert lotus is the first item on the list. Since it is an unknown it went on first, leaving the main attraction to the end. The bid started at 500, but it soon became abundantly clear that there's a lot of interested parties. Never had the organizers seen an auction like this, as the crowd's all bidding for the same item, and this is only just the beginning. It was true that the painting is extraordinary, but with an unknown background they were surprised these people are fighting for it. This was especially true for the rich lords from Wind Country, and the Wind Daimyo was no exception. Once he heard that there's a painting with the legendary lotus as theme, he knew he must have it. This is also true for the other lords, as the lotus was only a rumor and last seen 500 years ago. On top of that, the setting of the painting captured the legendary status fabulously. Apparently, the professional appraisers were not local, hence they didn't know about the age-old legend. Otherwise they may rethink the painting's value. Another thing about the painting is that it was set in the desert night, thus only the desert dwellers can understand. Hence, one glance from these people the painting immediately caught their eyes. Combined with all the little details in the painting, they knew it's one treasure they couldn't simply ignore. Especially the daimyos, as they knew an item's worth better than even the experts. By the end of the hour, the unbelievable painting fetched over 1,000,000 ryo and it still shown no sign of stopping. It was like a showdown of daimyo because only they had the riches to continue the bid. They were all determined to have the main attraction for themselves. Little do they know, this is the show's main attraction, but from the ferocity of the bid you will be forgiven for the mistake. There are 17 daimyos in place, and by then the seats near them were empty. It's like an invisible tug of war between them, and the glare they sent to one another is starting to affect the nearby bidders. The scene was so bad it's also affecting the organizers. Go on, organizer. What are you waiting for? I will be taking this piece home after tonight. Like hell you are, I will be bidding Sunagakure the last thing I do. Think you can top that? The ninja village is nothing, I have at least 50 billion worth of diamonds to the west. However, another daimyo decides to add himself to the small talk while raising his fan, adding another 10,000 ryo to the bid. That's cute, 50 billion is small change compares to trading. My company can make at least 500 billion in a month. UF ***** should know with a ninja village, I can hire ninjas to take back what's rightfully mine. You think you are hot s *****, there are other ninja villages out there. Even minor village can get the job done. As the bid continues, the conversation starts to get dangerous. No one knows if the Wind Daimyo was joking or not, but it quickly attracted the Kazekage's attraction. It's a Kage's nightmare when there are 17 daimyos you don't want to piss off and had to somehow pacify them. Stop. This auction is closed. Gentlemen, please allow me to resolve this. Ramos. The village is willing to pay you 50,000 ryo for your painting and handle the responsibility. Is that acceptable and to your family's satisfaction? The Ramos quickly nodded their heads. They were just glad they didn't have to deal with the daimyos directly. These are very powerful people, they knew it was out of their hands when the daimyos were involved. They had personally witnessed the auction, instead of joy with the bid they had cold sweat. Unfortunately or fortunately, depending on who you are. The daimyos are now targeting their irk on the Suna village leader. Raza knew he had to act fast. He is perhaps more powerful than all of them put together, but it wouldn't do his reputation any good to threaten these people. Especially the Wind Daimyo, since they had a rather bad meeting earlier. Careful at what you say, Raza, your next words could mean the end of your village. It wasn't just the Wind Daimyo, as the others too can easily bankrupt Suna because they are all the village biggest clients. Daimyo-samas, please think. Even if you do win the auction, I doubt you will be able to keep it away from one another. As you all said so yourself, you could hire ninjas and steal it from one another. So instead of inflicting casualties upon each other, why not leave the painting with me? Sunagakure can act as neutral ground while safeguarding it. What do you say, Daimyo-samas? Although they don't like it, the Kazekage does have merit. They all knew it's true. Even after outbidding the other, none of them can seriously keep it from each other for long. Hence, it's more practical to leave it in a ninja village. So it didn't take them long to see reason and eventually back down. However, even though Raza convinced them otherwise, he doubted they would give up this easily. So once he returns to his office, he immediately calls for an emergency meeting and advises from both the elders and ninja commanders, they will need a plan. A plan to both protect the painting and at the same time impress their benefactors. The meeting went on for hours and hours. One thing they all agreed on is that these so-called lords won't give up easily. Hence, they knew they have to beef up the village security. Knowing there will be intruders and their target being the painting, they knew what their objectives are. Meanwhile, the very object that caused all that ruckus is surrounded by elite Umbu's guards. They were briefed of its importance, thus none of them dared to slack off. In order to ensure the right care were taken for the painting, the two professional appraisers were detained. Detained is perhaps a strong word to describe their situation. However, the Kazekage did insist them staying while offering to hire them until another is available. Paintings are delicate as they can be easily damaged by weather, bad care and maintenance. Hence why the Kazekage demand their stay, because he's not taking any chances. Luckily it wasn't too difficult to persuade them. Because they too were rather curious by the painting. All they asked in return was to have access to their library and information on this desert lotus. They still couldn't understand how the auction turned out as it did, hence why they wanted to learn what is so special about it. Both were professionals and experts in their field, hence it's no surprise how an unknown artist and painting elude them. Their predictions were way off, although sometimes experts can be wrong but never to such a scale. Even now they still had no idea where the painting came from. The people brought it to them because they found it in their dead relative's home. Based on their evaluation, the paint isn't that old. Possibly no more than a year, so they assumed it is some new or novice painter. They too noticed the painter's signature, Uzu, at the bottom. At first, they didn't think it's his signature because it wasn't written in a conventional way. It was written with two letters U's and a Z, cross-striking over the two U's. Since none of them recognize an artist doing that, they assume she must be relatively new. It wasn't just the appraisers, even the village elders are curious in this so-called painting that almost took them into war. When they did get to see, they found some familiarity but not know what. They thought in their age, they would have seen everything, but this painting is definitely no ordinary painting. Elder Chio suggests to the Kazekage to trace its origin, but at the time Raza didn't think it would be important. Little did he knew, the old woman could be right, but that's another chapter. Another thing Raza missed is that since the painting surfaced it's been center of his village's attention. He thought it would die down over time, but even he couldn't anticipate the chaos it would bring. Unfortunately, for better or for worse, only time will tell. For now, all he could do is to focus on one problem at a time. There will be impending chaos, but the question is whom will be the first. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. Make sure to like and subscribe, and don't forget to share this video with your friends. Guys, make sure to help the author by visiting the link in the description. This is Fox Sage, and I'm signing off.